Boss, your wife's asking for a divorce. Again. Chapter 7. She betrayed him first. Looking at Carl being all mysterious, Sonia's curiosity was aroused. Tell me where we're going first, and I will decide whether to go or not. Carl sighed helplessly. Sonia, how would it be a surprise if I told you? After seeing his bitter expression, Sonia couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was at this exact moment when Toby came out from the door, and he happened to see a man lowering his head and whispering into Sonia's ear. He didn't know what they were talking about. Sonia was smiling so happily, her eyes shining brightly. He was about to get in the car, but he stopped and turned around to stare at the man and woman coldly, his gaze as cold as ice. After the two of them got married, she had never laughed like this. In his ears were her endless nagging, all about trivial matters, and her eyes looked wary every time she looked at him. He actually didn't like seeing her this happy, he felt irritated. Who would have thought that after they got divorced, she seemed to have changed completely, she was exuding a dazzling light from the inside out. Is it all because of that man? Toby sneered at the corner of his mouth. An unfaithful woman who had no self-love was not worth his time at all. Sir. Seeing how his boss had gotten into the car, Tom Brown carefully called out to Toby. Hearing that, Toby retracted his gaze and got into the car. Go back to the office. Tom wasn't sure if it was just his imagination, but he felt that his boss was furious, and his expression was so scary. Sonia had just gotten into the passenger seat, and she saw Toby leave out of the corner of her eyes. As the car was moving, she only kept looking at the trees speeding by outside in a daze. Carl saw the desolation in her eyes, and he calmly suppressed the emotions in his eyes. Sonia, what are you thinking about? Sonia regained her senses and smiled. Nothing much. Looking at Carl's side profile, Sonia thought that his facial features were more prominent, with a somewhat mixed race look to it. Toby was famously good-looking back at school, but Carl was not inferior at all. With his wide shoulders, slender waist, and long legs, he was even comparable to international supermodels. Why did you choose the modeling industry anyway? Sonia once thought that with his good grades, he would embark on a career in academia. Well, I had a random audition at the beginning, but I didn't realize that after that, I would enter the modeling circle just like that. Looking back at the mirror, he glanced at Sonia and pretended to ask casually, why don't you like the modeling industry? Sonia shook her head, and her gaze was soft. Not really. As long as you have a good life and shine in your own domain, it's all the same for me. Hearing that, the young man smiled and braked steadily. We're here. In front of them was a rather retro two-story small Western-style building. There was an old man with white hair sitting in a wicker chair sipping on his tea. The old man turned around and smiled at her slightly. Hello, my girl. Sonia was stunned, unable to believe who was standing in front of her. The old man sighed. I've heard about everything. Sonia, you poor thing. With teary eyes, she threw herself under the old man's knee. Grandpa, where have you been all these years? 6 years ago, the funds in Paradigm Company were stolen, and all the evidence pointed to her father. Because of this, not only was he expelled from the board of directors, but he was also put behind bars. Subsequently, her stepmother and stepsister fled with whatever money they had left. Everything added together caused her father to take his own life. The old man explained. I've been investigating the theft of company funds back then. I found that it was related to the Triforce Enterprise. Your father was made a scapegoat. Triforce Enterprise was the largest real estate company in the city. Its chairman was Titus Gray, who was none other than Tina's father. While Sonia was pondering, the old man took out a document and put it in her hand. Girl, this is 51% of Paradigm Company's shares. Don't ask me how I got it, but I know this is what you need right now. Hearing that, Sonia pursed her lips and looked solemn. I will find the person who framed my father and prove his innocence. Grandpa, I will certainly not let you down. Welcome to download Joyread app to read more chapters of Boss. Your wife's asking for a divorce. Again. Novel online.